All right, for today's reteach, we are going to look at proportion word problems and ratio tables. So first step is we are going to find the two units that are being compared. So it says Mrs. Byrne ran 7 miles in 59.5 minutes. So I see miles is one of our units, and I see that minutes is our other unit. So the two units that are being compared are miles and minutes. And you can see I wrote those down here, miles and minutes. Next up is I'm going to circle the two initial numbers and fill them in the first ratio, that initial ratio. So Mrs. Byrne ran 7 miles in 59.5 minutes. So 7 miles goes on top with our miles, 59.5 goes on the bottom with minutes. And then our end results. So it says circle the other number and corresponding unit given in the problem. So how many minutes would it take her to run 2 miles? So 2, the number, goes with miles. We put miles on top, so we are going to put 2 on top, which means we are solving for the minutes, which makes sense because the question says how many minutes. That means that's our unknown. Now that we have our proportion, I'm going to highlight my diagonals. Okay? So when we are looking at this proportion and these two diagonals, I'm looking for the diagonal that has 2 numbers in it. So right here for me, the pink diagonal has 2 numbers. It has a 59.5 and a 2. The green has a variable in it, so we're not using that one right now. So 59.5, and I'm going to multiply that by 2. So you can do that in your head, or you can do that on a calculator. When I multiply those two together, I get 119. So that was step 1. Step 2 is we're looking at the diagonal that has the variable. For me, it's this green diagonal, has the variable x. I'm going to use the other number in that diagonal, which is 7, and I'm going to divide. So 119 divided by 7, I plug that into my calculator, and I get 17. So 17 is our answer. X was on the bottom, which stands for minutes. So 17 minutes. All right, let's try another example. Joe mows lawns during his summer vacation to earn money. He took 14 hours last week to mow 8 lawns. At this rate, how many lawns could he mow in 49 hours? So first thing I'm going to look for is those 2 units. So Joe mows lawns during his summer vacation. He took 14 hours. That's our first unit, is hours. Last week to mow 8 lawns. And you'll see I already filled it out over here. Hours, lawns. All right, now I'm going to circle the 2 initial numbers that are given to us. So 14 hours, 8 lawns, and we're going to fill that out in our initial ratio. 14 goes with hours, which we put on top. 8 goes with lawns, which we put on the bottom. Then it says to circle the other number and corresponding unit. So if I keep reading, at this rate, how many lawns could he mow in 49 hours? So the number and the unit there. So it says 49 hours. I find hours in my proportion. I put that on top, so I'm going to put 49 on top, which means we are solving for the lawns. And that makes sense because it says how many lawns. Now I'm going to highlight my diagonals. And we're going to solve our proportion. The diagonal that has 2 numbers in it is this pink one, 8 and 49. So I'm going to multiply 8 times 49, and we get 392. And then the next step is looking at the diagonal with the variable, which is this green one here. We have the x. The other part of the diagonal is 14. So I'm going to divide by 14. So 392 divided by 14 is 25. 28. Well, what was that standing for? X was on the bottom, which stands for lawns. So 28 lawns is our answer. All right, number 3. Joshua bought 8 video games for $124. How much would he pay for 20 video games? So first, looking for our units. He bought 8 what? He bought 8 video games. So that is our first unit. And then for $124, even though it doesn't say a word, I see this dollar symbol here. That tells me that my other unit is money. Then I'm going to circle the 2 initial numbers given to us. So it says 8 video games, and the number that goes with the dollars is 124. So I'm going to first label the units, and I'm going to do it in the order that it was given. So we were given video games first. I'm just going to write VG for video games. And then our money was given next. So I'm going to write the $ for money underneath. And then we're going to plug in those 2 initial numbers. 8 goes with video games, which is on top. 124 goes with the money, which is on the bottom. And then circle the other number in the corresponding unit. So finish our question. How much would he pay for 20 video games? So the number is 20, the unit is video games. We put video games on the top, so we're gonna put 20 on the top, which means we are solving for money. Now let's highlight our diagonals. So looking for the diagonal that has 2 numbers in it, we have this pink one right here. The 124 and 20 are in the same diagonal. So I'm going to multiply 124 times 20, and I get 2,480. And then we divide by the number that's in the same diagonal as the variable. So I find my variable, 8 is in that same diagonal. So I'm going to divide by 8. So when I divide that, I get 310. Our X is on the bottom with money, so I'm doing $310. All right, so that was lesson 1, which was proportion word problems. Now we're gonna look at lesson 2, which is ratio tables. So to make cranberry jam, you need 12 cups of sugar for every 16 cups of cranberries. Complete the table with equivalent ratios. So we've already filled in our proportion, comparing sugar and cranberries. And then on this table, I'm looking for where I'm given both sugar and cranberries, and that's this column right here, which is 12 over 16. So I'm gonna fill that in my initial ratio. 12 matches with sugar, 16 matches with cranberries. This other number here, 4, I need to put in one of these 2 spots. Since 4 corresponds with cranberries, and cranberries was on the bottom, I'm gonna put the 4 on the bottom, okay? And then on top, we are solving for the sugar. So I'm going to highlight my diagonals, and then we are going to calculate. This time the diagonal that has 2 numbers in it is this green diagonal with the 12 and the 4. So I'm going to multiply 12 times 4, which is 48. And then we're dividing by the number that's in the same diagonal as the variable. We're going to divide by 16, and we get that x equals 3. And what were we solving for? I'm going to plug this into the table. 3 was with cups of sugar, so 3 cups of sugar. All right, last one. Every 7 hours, Greg drove 385 miles. Complete the table with equivalent ratios. So our 2 units that are given to us, hours and miles. I'm going to put hours on top, H. I'm going to put miles, M, on the bottom, okay? And then looking for the initial ratio, where it gives me both values is this row right, or this column right here, the 7 and the 385. So I'm gonna plug in 7 goes with hours on top. The 385 goes with miles on the bottom. And then this 15, figuring out where that plugs in. 15 is on top with hours, so I'm gonna keep it on top with hours here, which means we are solving for the minutes. And let's go ahead and solve our proportion. The diagonal that has 2 numbers in it is this one right here, which is 385 and 15. So I'm gonna do 385 times 15, which is 5,775. And then I'm dividing by the number that's in the same diagonal as the variable. So I'm dividing by 7, which gives me 825. And then looking back for our units, I'm gonna plug this into our table. The units of our answer, that is standing for miles. So 825 miles.